What about the Nazi bell?
No, shut up.
Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds.
Are they in the proper approach pattern for today?
Negative.
Hold the weapon! Now! Charge the lightning field.
And we are live. Are we not?
Live and on tape.
How about Dispatch Ajax?
Hey, that's a...
That's us, yeah. You are listening to us.
Oh, wow. I was just sitting here staring at the computer. I didn't realize we were going to do an episode today.
And how is that different than any other day?
Exactly.
Well, I have a special treat for you, Skip, and all our listeners around the galaxy.
Both of you.
All 16 of you.
Well, we are native Missourians and proud of it, so...
So this is a special treat, just for us.
So don't listen.
It's not for you.
I like to masturbate in closed rooms while people are waiting for pie to cool.
I didn't think they'd bring that up in Better Call Saul, but you never know.
I was shocked that they actually managed to follow up a good show with a good show. It's really good.
Yeah, I've heard that. I just haven't done it. There's a lot of people who like Better Call more than the Double B.
I think it's more enjoyable in places because it's not as cringy.
Just like this podcast. Let's set the scene.
Mm-hmm.
It's 1947. Corona, New Mexico. The most famous and monumental ufological incident in the history of mankind has occurred, as, according to reports, a craft of extraordinary origins has crashed along with its even stranger occupants. This is the infamous Roswell crash, full of its lore, military connections, and long-reaching impact. But this was not a unique incident in manner nor consequence, nor was this the first of such crashes. 6 years before, in a strangely similar fashion, another crash occurred in Missouri, but never received the fanfare of its successor, so much so that there isn't even a Wikipedia page for this event. This is the Cape Girardeau UFO crash. This story originates with a woman named Charlotte Huffman Mann. She wrote a letter and sent it to a UFO researcher named Raymond E. Fowler, who then sent it on to another UFO researcher that focused on UFO crashes, Leonard Stringfield, in the 1990s, which prompted exploration into this particular topic. This letter and its contents got printed in some books that has then gone on to be examined by many other researchers like Linda Moulton Howe, Stan Friedman. It was featured on an episode of Ancient Aliens.
Of course it was.
Even Rush Limbaugh commented on it once.
Well, he's from Cape Girardeau.
He is from Cape Girardeau. And apparently there was a caller into his radio show one time who asked him point blank about this incident. And in unrush-like fashion, he said, "There's more to that story than you might think." And then moved on and never spoke about it again.
So he stroked out like Alex Jones.
The government. This letter is the key to any of this mystery. And so many were now deceased, and those few still alive were afraid to talk. Thankfully, we had this letter. This letter took us back to April 12th, 1941. This is the probable night of the crash.
It's the biggest thing that happened that year.
The first hot air balloon went up in the air, I think. Man discovered the wheel.
And fire at the same time.
That's a hot disc, my friend.
Yeah, the only two wheels in existence crashed into each other, and that's how they found fire.
Yum. In Cape Girardeau, there was a minister. He worked for the Red Star Tabernacle in downtown Cape Girardeau, about 2 blocks from the church. His name was Reverend William Huffman. On the night of April 12th, he was relaxing with his family, and he received a phone call about 9 p.m. This call came from the Cape Girardeau Police Department. A terrible plane crash had happened outside of town. There was a big fireball and debris scattered everywhere. and they asked him if he could please come with them to get out there immediately. This might seem odd nowadays, but it was semi-common practice if there was an accident to bring a man of the cloth to read people their last rites or pray over anybody who might be ill. Huffman never named who called him, but the Cape Girardeau Justice of the Peace happened to live directly across from him. They went to church together, and he knew him quite well.
And then they got married.
They did. They got married. They had 17 kids.
In 4 years.
Doing the duty to please that booty. It's likely that the Justice of the Peace saw that he was at home and available, and being as Huffman wasn't a practicing reverend for the town, but more of a fundraiser cheerleader, it was odd that he was called, so it makes more sense that the Justice probably saw him, reached out to him so they could quickly get somebody there. Now, Cape Girardeau was a town of about 20,000 then. Now it's closer to 40,000.
Whoa.
So Reverend Huffman went off with the police department, and about 12 to 15 miles outside of town, they saw a fire raging in the farmer's field. There was a crashed fuselage, and there was a crowd gathering, not because necessarily of the downed vehicle, but what the vehicle was. It was a gray metal disc structure of some sort. It seemed to have no rivets or seams. It was completely circular except for the broken section, wherein you could peer inside. Mr. Huffman did that, and he saw tiny seats, a dashboard with panels, and there was a gray metal band around the inside with strange hieroglyphic symbols that he couldn't understand and did not recognize.
They had a house metal band? That's pretty cool. Like Slipknot or like...
I was trying to think of a band name. Andromeda Damage. That's the first name that came. I don't know.
Andromedon's pretty good.
Androgynous Andromeda? I don't know.
No, you're glam territory.
It's much more my style.
Mm-hmm.
There's debris in the field and shrapnel all around. At the scene was the Cape Girardeau Fire Department, Cape Girardeau Police Department, 2 news photographers who are using their flash cameras and scribbling notes, and there's the FBI. Now, you might wonder why the FBI was there on the scene right as it happened. Strange enough, the FBI had opened up a field office in the little town's post office about a month before the crash. Supposedly they were searching for saboteurs and spy rings in the southeast Missouri area. As America was several months away from joining the war, but they were worried about the German and Japanese activities. Cape Girardeau had a large German contingency living there at the time, with some church services being done only in German, and they were worried that information about any type of crash or activities would be relayed to Nazi Germany. That's one possible explanation why they were there. Huffman was expected to say prayers over the victims, but instead of human pilots, he encountered small gray humanoids. There were 2 of them lying on the ground. They had big black eyes, long, skinny legs and arms. Their skin and bones seemed almost like rubber. They had 3 skinny long fingers and 1 long thumb. Crinkly skin, but it might have been a tight-fitting flight suit. It was really hard to tell. The 2 were laying side by side in the grass, as they had been pulled away from the crash and placed there, side by side. He leaned over and said prayers for the fallen creatures, and then there was the 3rd one that he knelt over. But with this one, he could see its chest moving up and down.
That one he damned to hell for all eternity.
Curse you, alien!
He looked me in the eye.
Big black eyes.
Like a doll's eyes.
This creature still seemed to be alive. He said prayers over it, and as he did so, the creature expired, as its chest ceased its movement.
Yeah, but those expiration dates are just kind of like suggestions.
But I mean, his was like 3 months past due, so...
Oh, well, okay,
I mean,
yeah.
You could smell him. He was a bit rank.
Okay.
While he was finishing his prayers on the dying humanoid, 2 men close by picked up one of the deceased creatures and then propped him up, Weekend at Bernie's style, for a photograph.
And then used him as a hand puppet.
You're all gonna die!
We all float down here.
One of the newsmen didn't use his big flash camera, but pulled out a little pocket camera, snapping just 1 solitary picture. Huffman said that the army then soon arrived, somewhere between 9:30 and 10:30. They quickly blocked everything off surrounding the site and informed all those present that nothing happened here. You didn't see anything. This is an issue of national security, and you are to hand over all notes and photographs, any recordings, and any shrapnel, all evidence of said events. And you are not to speak with anyone at any time for the rest of your lives, all for the good of your country. Again, you might question, how did the Army get there so fast? I mean, theoretically, an hour after it crashed? There was an Army aerial training program in Sikeston, Missouri, about 35 miles to the south. The county sheriff's brother worked for that program, and he could easily have given him a call immediately upon learning of a possibly downed aircraft. The leader of that aerial training program, a man named Ruth, came directly from Washington and supposedly had connections there. There was a woman named Linda L. Wallace, whose father was based in Sikeston, and though he wouldn't ever speak of it, other family members indicated that he may have seen this crash material, and the recovery might have been taken back to Sikeston to then be moved on somewhere else.
To a real city. I've been to Sikeston. It's a shithole.
I have not, but that's wonderful to hear. I hope someone in Sikeston is listening right now.
I guarantee you they're not.
Reverend Huffman was sworn to secrecy. When he arrived home, his family could tell that he was shaken and rattled by something that happened. And, as any good reverend sworn to secrecy for his entire life, he said, all right, I'm going to tell you what happened just right now.
yeah, that sounds about right.
He said, I would tell you the story once and then never again. And supposedly, he never really did so, at least in full detail.
Only to the little kids and privately.
In a darkened closet when no one was at home. 2 weeks after the event, the photographer who had taken that picture came by Reverend Huffman's residence and said, I have a copy of that pic, and I want you to have a copy. That man then took off with fear and paranoia. Huffman gave that pic to his son, who then tucked it away and stayed as such for about a dozen years. Charlotte Huffman Mann, at this time just Charlotte Huffman, was born during this time, and they were living in a small town in Kansas. As family members would get together, they would sometimes pull out the photo and pore over it. It always stuck with her. In the town they were from, there were always whispers and rumors of what had happened, what the truth was. One day, they invited a neighbor from across the street over for dinner. They got in a conversation about oddities and strange things, and the topic of aliens came up. That then led to the crash in Cape Girardeau.
And then one thing led to another, and
They all slept together.
It was a giant bed.
It's
like in Charlie and the Chocolate
That's exactly what I was going to say. That's weird. That's the best example of a giant bed with a lot of people sleeping together.
Probably, unless you've seen that Playboy show about swingers. They have a whole room like that.
Yes, tell me more. This is much more interesting than what I have.
I'll tell you about a different crash story.
That wasn't a UFO in that crevice.
Oh, they are cigar-shaped.
So they showed the neighbor the photograph. Doesn't seem to be keeping it too secret or too safe there, Frodo. He said that he knew a man who was well-versed in photography and wildlife. He could show him the photo, and they could make something of it, and that he would quickly get back to them. Well, the man took the photo and never returned, quickly moving away. The man turned out to be an Army intelligence officer. He was tracked down in the 90s, at that time an old man living outside Albuquerque, New Mexico. He denied taking that picture, and said later that he'd seen the picture but given it back. All of his answers were evasive and slippery, and as any of the interviews went on, he became surly. He claimed to work for the State Department at one point, and that he was close with JFK and Lyndon Baines Johnson during those years. But at this point, it's been over a decade, and he's long passed away, so we'll never get any more answers from him.
Speak for yourself. I'll dig that bitch up.
So over the years, Reverend Huffman died, as did his 2 sons and his wife. But his granddaughter...
At the same time?
Not at the same time. But his granddaughter...
Tragic cheese grating accident?
They all lived fine until the day they put in the spaghetti grinder.
I used to be the man with hands for hands.
But before his wife died, young Charlotte Huffman Mann asked the story to her grandmother, who was dying of cancer. At that point, she got all the facts she could, wrote them down, checked any details with her sister, and then sent it off to Mr. Fowler, then spread it along. There are others who somewhat corroborate said story. there was a Cape Girardeau fireman named Walter Reynolds, and on his deathbed with cancer as well, told his family that the rumors and tales were true, that he was there with the fire department and he went to the crash. He saw the bodies in the ship and he saw the Army come in. They even caught him trying to pocket a piece of the debris. The Army chewed him out, forced him to give it back, and then kicked him out of the scene. Apparently after that...
It's all true. I was there. He signed with his dead hand.
For years later, he felt watched, and he later found out that his phone had been tapped. Now we're going to jump later, or possibly earlier, depending on what you read. Now again,
Depending on what time is.
a lot of the stuff with the story, it's really nebulous. There isn't much information on it.
That's how you know it's true.
I even was on a website where I had this open to give some details, and as I was reading it, it 404'd on me, and no more information from that place. But there was a
The 404 is the worst of all sex positions.
that's 2 chairs and a big hole,
Well, it's an Eiffel Tower, but there's nothing in the middle.
except the blank void that's sucking all of our will to live.
Yep, sucking that. That's what it's sucking.
So, possibly later in the, 42, 43, or maybe as early as 1938, which calls all of this into question, but I will tell you the story anyway. There was a Reverend Turner Hull. He was from Ohio, and he was visiting Washington, D.C. at the time to see his cousin, Franklin Delano Roosevelt's Secretary of State, Cordell Hull. Cordell said, "Hey, I want to show you something." And he brought him to the Capitol building, although some say it was the White House. Again, stories are inconsistent. How about that?
There you go.
Apparently they got to the steps where Cordell swore his cousin to secrecy. Just follow me. They went down flight after flight of stairs and then down through these different elevators into this locked door in the sub-basement. They went into this room, and there were 3 glass jars with 3 gray bodies floating in some clear viscous liquid. The bodies seemed to have no visible injuries. Along with those bodies, there was a silver vehicle, circular in shape and cut into sections so that it would fit into the room. There was a box of debris next to it. Hull said that he would never say anything, and after he left that, some years later, Hull did tell his daughters the story of what he saw. Apparently he said, "Don't say anything until I am dead, but then tell the whole world what it is I saw there." Now again, things get weirder as we progress on, and the details of connections gets a little more tenuous. For now, we will travel to the Majestic 12 documents, which, if any of you know what those are supposedly secret documents about the connections and the meetings of aliens and the U.S. government, the grand conspiracies about UFO technology, possible collusion with extraterrestrial biological entities. And in those documents...
And muffin recipes.
They have the one for cinnamon biscuits, which is truly out of this world.
That's where Cheddar Bay biscuits come from.
That's why they never taste as good in this galaxy. Apparently there's an FDR memorandum in there setting up a non-terrestrial science and technology study that was to be headed by Dr. Vannevar Bush. Now, Mr. Bush was a high-ranking scientist involved in the war effort. Days after the crash...
In the rankings of scientists, he was up there. You got a lieutenant scientist...
They actually just have
corporal scientist.
podiums. Like whenever you go to sleep, you have to be on whatever podium level that you're deemed on.
I'm science number 1.
Get up there, science man. You're number 2. Get back down there.
Bronze. Disappointment. Your theory can't be true.
Apparently, days after the Girardeau crash, he was called into the Oval Office to talk with FDR, along with the Surgeon General of the Navy, a Dr. McIntyre. Now, this was possibly to autopsy both the victims of the crash and the ship itself. Further memos discussed celestial wonders that have come to us, and that scientists should be given more access to these said celestial wonders.
Who live in the center of the earth and were born upon the exit of the Eternals.
That's true. That's a fact.
I seen it.
These documents also apparently discuss weaponizing this technology. And there are hints that the propulsion system of this craft was used in the Manhattan Project between 1942 and 46, well before the infamous Roswell incident, and could be the reason we have nuclear weapons this day. Imagine me with my hair really tall.
I'm not saying it was aliens, but
I mean, probably aliens. Now, other than some wide-ranging further conspiracy theories, or some weird coincidences, such as Harry S. Truman was in Cape Girardeau in 1906 training for the Army. And in 1941, you know who was the Grand Master Freemason of Missouri? Harry S. Truman.
how do you explain him?
Yeah, come on, aliens.
We'll never know.
Tell me that.
What about this Truman guy, huh? Did he exist? Come on.
All we can truly say is that it's a fascinating incident that happened in the middle of America years before Roswell. This seemed to line up just like Roswell in most details. The difference being that the Army got there quick, did not put out a huge press release saying that they found a flying saucer, or the fact that this was pre the war.
Were you going to say warp? Were you going to say pre-warp? This is before first contact, you
Zephyr
see.
Cochran had nothing to do with this.
I had nothing on me.
At the very least, this is an interesting incident, and one that deserves to be known, as it's quite possible the first contact with extraterrestrials on American soil was in Cape Girardeau, Missouri.
No, I was in Texas.
I think that was the first with the Dracos, maybe, right? Because everything's bigger in Texas. It was probably the Nordics, I would guess.
No, I think they were from Venus, honestly. Didn't they say they were from Venus?
I mean, there's lots of...
There's aliens everywhere, come on.
I mean, it's been happening forever, you know. I wanted to say that, again, finding information on this is really thin and minimal. I got a lot of this from Paul Blake Smith, who wrote the book Mo 41, The Bombshell Before Roswell. And he's a guy who's used to live in Cape Girardeau, and he did a lot of the research on that, and a lot of these personal stories were of his accounts. But this is the UFO crash that you didn't know about. And that's what we're here for. I don't have anything else to say. That's all I got.
You can go to, actually, the Columbia, Missouri Tribune has an article about it from 2015.
And those articles tell you, like, nothing.
Like they all read the same press release or whatever.
Oh, okay. The PDF came back up. I'm not going to send it to you.
What?
That'll overload the...
Yeah, no, it'll blow the whole thing.
So this article is by Linda Thompson.
Made up name.
A person.
Sure.
Apparently she's the researcher. At least that's what her Outlook.com email address says. I mean, she had some possible intersecting conspiracy theories related to this. One theory is that FDR killed himself in 1945 on the 4th anniversary of the 1941 incident.
Of course he did.
He said to known to have health problems, and speculation he killed himself because of the incident, that he was under a lot of stress from the war, and that this alien contact forced him over the edge.
Oh, I found a MUFON release about this.
Oh, what do you got?
Here, I'll send this to you.
There's another theory that a tip from a contactee who indicated that the Cape Girardeau crash was a gift from the aliens for technology transfer.
Here you go. We're just going to slam into your planet.
They indicate that there are no craft crashes, that all such crashes are gifts.
The kamikaze gifts are not the way to give gifts. I'm sorry.
Yeah, now about the alien bodies, apparently they were also gifts.
Weather balloons. Swamp gas.
It was Venus.
You most likely saw the plane at Venus.
There's another theory that the nearby military training complex with the air cadets, they were then shipped 55 of those cadets to San Angelo, Texas on April 25th for further training. They believe this was to keep them quiet about the cleanup activities around the incident.
Oh, yeah. I guess 42 was the LA air raid.
Yeah.
Forgot about that being that.
That's another thing that, I mean, your normal human being doesn't know about.
Kind of like the one in Nuremberg in, what was it, like 16 something?
You mean
the dogfight?
Where they had the painting where there's like all the ships in the air and they seem to be attacking each other?
It was a woodcut print, and it wasn't just that. Like there was a newspaper report. There were like 1,800 witnesses of the event that all said the same thing. And so if they were sundogs, you wouldn't be able to see that happening at different viewing angles. And the witness reports came from like all parts of the city. I don't know, man.
It's not something to wag your tail at.
Nope, I don't.
That woodcut's bark is stronger than its bite. Sundogs.
Coming this fall.
It's just called Sundogs.
It's a sequel to Straw Dogs, but it's a sitcom.
These two dogs gotta live together.
One of them is kidnapping.
Oh, God.
Well, so is Straw Dogs. I don't know.
I don't know. You just caught me off guard. It got a little too real.
But at least,
Is this case real?
they're reclaiming it. It just feels like they're not. It feels like they're just playing on.
Is that a guitar?
Mm-hmm. Smoke on the water.
Hey, didn't you just see the sign? No stairway.
No, it was the spring on my the arm for my microphone.
Micro machine phone?
Mm-hmm. If I could speak that fast, I would.
Oh, man.
Yeah, nobody remembers that.
Yeah, I totally do. Well, anyway, that's the pod. So
yeah, that's what we do.
We hope you liked it and learned something.
Yeah, and it's not the only Missouri thing we're going to cover because there are multiple Missouri cryptids as well. Is this news to you?
No.
Because it's
No, I'm listening. It's called listening intently. Yeah? Are there?
It's all happening.
Here, give me a little preview. Which off the top of your head.
There are
Just one. Just name one. Your favorite one. Who's your favorite?
Momo the monster. Momo the monster, which is a cryptid said to live in the Ozarks. It's basically a skunk ape.
Yeah.
And
skunky.
About 7 foot tall, smells bad, that whole thing.
Hot.
And then there's Ozark Howler, or the Missouri Howler. It doesn't fit into the Sasquatch skunk ape archetype. It's a different beast. It's more like Jersey Devil.
What's great, if you just Google that, like the pictures that show up, it looks like a dog with antlers and
it's a jackalope.
I think yeah. And then there seems to be some hot woman with horns and devil eyes.
The Rule 34, is that what it is?
The legend of the Missouri beast known as the Ozark Howler.
Most of Missouri doesn't claim the Ozarks. Basically everything past, Jeff City can just belong to Arkansas. We don't care.
Cape Girardeau is really close.
Trash garbage. Yeah, well, yes, it is.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. If you want, leave us a 5 UFO crash review.
Tell us about how our show is a UFO crash in and of itself.
We got 2 spindly alien bodies that fell out. And they just keep yabbering on.
They're mannequins, man.
Hey, I'm no mannequin.
No, that was, Who was the second mannequin? Because the first one was...
Who was in the second mannequin?
Well, because Kim Cattrall didn't come back for the second one.
Mannequin 2.
Yeah, obviously the superior of the 2 mannequins.
Christy Swanson.
Oh, I thought it was Christy. I was going to say that, but I thought it would be wrong. All right. Wow, okay. Yeah, big shoes to fill. No, like enormous.
I mean, it's a well-known fact of how big Kim Cattrall's shoes are.
That's why she didn't get invited back to Sex and the City.
Literally, she didn't fit. Have you ever seen her feet on film? They specifically do not film that. They get the Rob Liefeld of directors to work there at all times.
It's always hidden behind somebody's head.
Wait, why is there a giant gun on set? This is a rom-com. We got to cover her feet up.
I got to make shoulder pads taller. Pockets. Can we hide it with pockets?
Need more pockets.
If Stan Lee were Jim Lee. You gotta get more pockets. Anyway, yes, and don't forget to support your local comic shops and retailers. And from Dispatch Ajax, we'd like to say Godspeed, fair wizards.
Yay!
Please, go away.